Okay, hey, Sarah with NextGEN Medium. It's been a little while, and I took a little bit of time off, and I think I'm still kind of taking time off until the weather gets too cold to enjoy to be outside. This first half of the year, we're dealing with the pandemic, so that's fun, but a lot of time focused on building information for you guys through my vlog, through my blog, through the podcast, all that, and the website, all that stuff with NextGEN Medium. Takes a lot of time, a lot of focus, a lot of energy, and it kind of left me depleted of enjoying the present, enjoying the moment. And so it was kind of nice to take some time off, enjoy the nice weather, do some fun stuff outside, get my body going, which feels really good, and enjoy that present moment that I missed for quite a while. So kind of starting to ramp things up a little bit. I wanted to give you a little something that dawned on me this week, and it was something I never really thought about, how I developed creating my procedure, my routine when it comes to doing psychic readings or intuitive mediumistic sittings. I hate words because some people don't know what other words mean. It depends on who you are, what words to use, and I'm just like, whatever. Okay, so, it dawned on me, and I thought I would share it with you. And it's sort of an embarrassing thing to admit how I've come about doing it, but kind of deducing how it's come about kind of makes sense with my background. So I wanted to pass that along to you because sometimes understanding your intuitive or psychic or mediumship abilities requires bouncing it off of a person, off of another person, what you're receiving, how that relates to them, and it helps you understand how you receive, what it is you receive, the accuracy of interpreting what you're receiving, but also how nuanced you are, how receptive you are, and to be better. Right? That's kind of the point, is that we're able to rely on the messaging we're receiving. And so using another person is really scary, but it's so beneficial that it's something to not ever count out and to work towards. So one way to work towards that would be to practice doing psychic, mediumship, intuitive readings. And this way you get sort of instantaneous feedback on what you're getting and helps develop that energy. And what you may also find is doing it with somebody who's open, who you feel trust with, who you can get honest feedback from, that it builds your confidence more, that their energy actually kind of becomes sort of a microphone. It makes your messaging even more amplified, so to say. So I wanted to give you what I do, how I developed that process to be able to sit in front of a person and have a little more confidence in what I do, because either way it's scary to do it in front of a person. First time, 10th time, 60th time, and it's important to kind of have a familiarity with a process kind of before things get going, and that way you're not all distracted by how fish out of water you feel. So it's really a simple task for you, and I kind of think back about the first time I did it, and a little bit about my background. So I used to be a musician, wrote songs, played guitar, played piano. A lot of times I did like solo shows. So I quite often found myself preparing for shows by practicing a set all by myself, in a room, playing my instrument, singing my song to the pretend audience. And so this was just sort of a technique that I developed that I think just about any musician would understand. Maybe if you give speeches, that would be another pretty, parallel situation where you would practice and pretend you have an audience in front of you. It's that theater of the mind thing. So with that experience of being a musician, I remember one night around that time of my life when I was performing and playing music and making music, that it was a quiet night. Everybody was asleep. I was on my third wind. It was 11 o'clock at night. I probably should have been in bed, but I felt energized. And I remember standing in the kitchen, kind of like what I'm doing now, and pretending I was in front of an audience and doing a gallery reading. Gallery reading is when a psychic medium's in front of an audience and goes up to people and does a, 10-15 minute reading or sitting or terminology. I am getting an older woman. I get F is the first letter of her name. This lady has passed on. I feel like she's in her 70s, 80s. As she's presenting herself to me, I can see an image of her in my mind. Her hair's almost blue, bluish gray, but I'm getting like a Franny or a Frankie. So this would be like an example of what I was pretending to do years ago, that one time. And I remember practicing it that one night and acting like this is how I would do it if I was a psychic medium. At that time, I had no idea of the skills that I do possess and that I've always possessed. Not to say it's exclusive to me. I think there's a spectrum of abilities that everybody is included in having. So let me digress a little bit. So with that example of pretending there's an audience in front of me and acting like the expert that I was a psychic medium and I was picking out people, and in my mind I'm seeing this and this is what it means, and just going and riffing, but I also feel like there's a little boy coming in, and I actually see him with a string toy that rolls on the floor, and he feels like he's from another era. He feels like he was maybe around in the 30s as a little boy, but as he's pictured to me, I feel like he had a passing that was early. I feel like this is connected to the older woman that I'm receiving, and so this was sort of the dialogue that I was having with myself, but pretending that it was with someone I was reading, as my pretend psychic medium gallery reading was taking place that one night. So looking back, it's really embarrassing to say that I was kind of talking to myself one night, pretending, but I actually find myself doing it now more often these past couple of years, and finding that having done readings with real people, that practice actually feels quite similar to what I experience with my psychic medium readings that I do. And what's important when you're doing that is that it's sort of like you're allowing whatever comes through it is the truth, you know? It's hard when somebody's in front of you and you can see their reactions, because then it creeps into you, and then your ego starts getting affected by it. And then your messaging, you start feeling like maybe my messaging's not right, or maybe, you know, I don't know. But with this practice, it sort of develops that speed and that flow of receiving your messaging and explaining what you're seeing, how you're feeling, how it relates to your pretend, I don't know, pretend guest, I don't know. And then it sort of feels right on with how I do readings and sittings now, where I'm able to take in what I'm receiving. Usually it's a lot of imagery. I do get feelings, like emotional feelings as well. But this is a way for you to really pay attention to what you're receiving, to verbalize it, practice verbalizing it, but also being 100% in the truth. Not being swayed one way or another. This is what I'm getting. This is what I'm receiving. This is how I'm passing it along to you. It helps gain your confidence in trusting what you're getting. And a common phrase that I say, and when I see people with, you know, faces that are like, you know, I don't know what you're talking about, it's sort of like, my phrase that I say to them is just, I'm giving you what I'm receiving, and just write it down, and maybe it'll make sense later. And then when you start getting into real world readings, you kind of learn how to traverse that, in which you kind of dig a little deeper. Is there more to this message that I'm just not getting? Maybe it's more literal than what I am perceiving. I do feel some emotions attached to it, so maybe it has to do with a sad event, or, you know, whatever emotion I'm connecting it with. But then after a while, you're sort of beating a dead horse, and that's when you're like, you know what? I gotta move on to something else. Write that down, and take a look at that, you know, at a later time, and maybe it'll make sense a little bit later, because, you know, not everything I'm saying is going to be maybe received correctly or perceived correctly. Not everything that I explain is going to be explained correctly. What I am saying and what's being heard could not be jiving. So there's plenty of ways that a piece of information, just one little image of a piece of red fabric, you know, which is actually what I just received right now for whatever reason, that image has to be processed in my brain, and then I got to explain it, and then also weigh in what else is going on. Maybe there's a feeling in my body, maybe there's an emotional something or other I'm getting, and then I'm going to pass it along to the person, and then maybe they're so stuck on maybe one concept that they're not being open to a bigger concept or another experience that happens. So there's a lot there, but that doesn't matter now, because you are practicing, and everything that you're saying is going to be right on. In real life, it doesn't always happen like that, but when you're doing your practicing and you're talking to yourself out loud and you're feeling silly, there's a couple of things that you need to get past. And one of those things is, if it does feel silly and you feel really self-conscious, then building up the courage to have somebody in front of you and do a reading is going to be even harder. So you got to find a way to get past that, or else you won't be able to have the truth and give the truth. Also, if it sounds beneath you to do practicing beforehand, then again, you know, if something's beneath you, then connecting with other people in a way that they're open and perceptive might be a challenge for you in the future. So being open to something where you're by yourself and just playing, if that seems like actually kind of a fun idea, then I think when it comes to doing readings and stuff that you're going to be further ahead in becoming more comfortable with your intuitive ability, becoming more understanding your intuitive ability, understanding the language of intuition. I think that's going to come for you a lot easier. So practice by yourself. What's also cool is building that muscle memory of sitting down and performing a reading for an actual person. So when you're doing your practicing, you're also going to do the, you know, hi, how are you? What's your name? You know what? I'm going to do it right now. Okay, so this is me practicing doing a reading. What I often find is that when I practice, I actually stand up because moving around helps keep my energy up. And I could do this for an hour. I seriously could do this for an hour. I don't have time to do it for an hour right now, but okay. Yeah, I got my workout stuff on. Looks like I actually went for a huge run, but I didn't. I walked most of it. Okay, so pretend reading would go something like this. So I'm going to pretend I have one person in front of me, and that's you. And I'm going to say, hi, how are you doing today? And I would say, have you ever had a psychic reading before? No. Okay. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how I do what I do. So what happens is I start my reading with talking to spirits that might be connected to you through family, friends, maybe a distant neighbor that all of a sudden peeks out of nowhere. These are people that have passed on. And this is the medium part of the reading that I do. So I actually have a little window up here where I visualize in my mind faces, and sometimes I can see their body, how they are, where they are. It tells me their relationship to each other and to you. From there, I kind of go on with communicating with them and passing along to you for a couple different reasons. Maybe there's something they want to say to you particularly. Maybe there's distrust in this process from you, which is fine. If you've never had a psychic reading before, I don't know how you could fully trust a process like this where you can't see or analyze really what's happening, and it's just a stranger just talking to you. So maybe there's proof that they want to pass along to you that this is real, that this is a thing that actually is a part of our lives. So we got the medium part of the reading, and then I kind of transition to a psychic. Sometimes it's hard for me to distinguish when that happens, but usually I start developing inclinations that kind of move over here in my periphery for some reason. Somehow I recognize that, but that's how the readings kind of go. If you have any questions, let's leave it for the end. But in the process, I might ask questions. And if you could just give me yes, no, or I don't know, that way I can stay in my brain and connect with that intuitive psychic medium side of things. Because if we start having a conversation, then my brain starts getting activated in other places, and then I get distracted, and then I can't focus. So that helps me. And other than that, it's going to be about 45 minutes. It could go longer. And I think that's it. Be nice to have a little checklist. But and then I say does that sound good to you? And then they go, yeah. And then I go, all right, so to start things off, I want to ask permission to read you, to do a sitting. So may I read you? And then the person goes, yeah. And then I go, okay, let me get up into the window. Okay. All right. So I've had an older couple kind of sticking with me throughout this presentation that I'm giving you guys. And maybe this is a message for somebody out there who's listening or watching. Okay, so I'm getting an older lady. I'm actually getting a gentleman with her, and they feel like a pair. They come together. So these people have passed on. So their ages feel elderly to me, like 70s. Okay, so I feel like she passed after him. I'm feeling a grandmother, grandfather pair. They actually, in real life, would stand kind of shorter, both of them. And I'm getting a name like Frankie. And I think I mentioned this before. Did I mention this before in what I was talking about? Okay, going back. So Frank or Frankie is really resonating with me. Okay. So they really seem like a pair that were together for a very, very long time. They lived their lifetime together, you know, two halves of a whole kind of deal. Okay. So there's a comparison I'm getting, and nobody's going to know the reference. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to confuse anybody. So I'm gauging personality right now. Gauging personality. So she came in first, which tells me a couple of things. One is that she was the more dominant personality, which is funny because she seems like the quieter one, but she has a presence that's more dominant than maybe grandfather figure, who seems like a chatty Cathy. Maybe he can go off with his anger sometimes, but it's sort of more bark than bite kind of aspect, whereas if grandma loses her temper, it's a big deal because she was so quiet and reserved, but she still had sort of that sternness to her. Okay. I'm asking grandmother how she passed, and I'm getting a couple of different things. Her passing was after his, but I feel like it was a short amount of time, maybe within 6 months, maybe even shorter. So what I'm getting from her is like a whole lot of, I don't want to say diagnoses, but like there was a stomach problem, there was Alzheimer's, there was this. It was like all kinds of things compounded that led to her passing away. But I'm being pointed to, this would be like pancreas or liver. She's also showing me a frailty to her passing. In that the passing happened within a couple weeks. So it was sort of like she wasn't doing well, and then something happens. A couple weeks later, she passed. I'm asking grandfather how he passed. He's giving me right in here as well. I'm asking heart attack, and he's not giving me heart attack. But it does feel like something that was sort of all of a sudden. Okay, I'm thinking it's pancreatic cancer because it was sort of known about in a way that was like, you got cancer, you've got 2 weeks, and then he passed. And grandmother feels lonely after his passing, which after a lifetime of having a significant other, I can imagine why it would feel like that. Okay. Where are we? She's taking me to Illinois, Ohio. Somewhere in there. So that tells me that she is maybe lived around that area, or this is for somebody that's in Illinois, Ohio, around there somewhere. Dansville? Dankerville? D-A-ville. I'm just going to pass that along. Sometimes I get maps, and I'm really feeling like this has to do with Illinois. I'm going to have to look up if there's a town in Illinois called that. I thought I just heard a cat meow, which I don't have a cat, so. Okay. What else? Okay. I'm asking grandparents if there's a significant life event of a person that they want to pass along to show evidence that they were there, that they knew that happened, or whatever. Okay. I'm getting the sense that whoever's watching this is currently going to school for like welding or something, a technical thing that has you with metal. But I feel pretty right on with welding. Okay, they're like 2 years, which tells me technical school, like you're in it for 2 years. Short amount of time, but it's 2 years. For a kid, that's a long time. Okay. So I'm asking, like, was there a graduation? And now they're in, you know, welding school. And it feels like there was a period of time from graduating to the time of doing this program. So it wasn't a right out of high school, graduated, and went into trade school. No, does not feel. In fact, it's like a 10-year span of time. Okay. Working lots of like minimum wage jobs. Grandfather feels a sense of pride in the working with the hands thing. In Maine, we would call him an old duffer. An old duffer. He seems like a very conservative-minded individual as well. Like traditional views. So I'm just asking, I'm receiving, and I'm just passing it along. I'm not mulling on what it is they're trying, on the imagery or the feelings that they're getting. I'm getting flashes of something. I'm taking it in. I'm just spitting it out. I'm not sitting and thinking about it. What does that really mean? It's a conversation that I'm having with them, and I'm passing along to you. This is developing the flow. And once the flow gets interrupted, it's hard to get it back on track sometimes. There's another gentleman that wants to step in, but the grandparents are kind of like, I got more to say. And I feel like it's an uncle. I feel like this is a tall gentleman. He's got sort of like a dark hair, dark mop top. I feel like he has a closeness with this couple in that I'm feeling like he is of the family. I'm feeling like maybe even a son, in which he would probably be your uncle. I'm assuming that's how family kind of works. So this is like Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted has had a rough life. Uncle Ted may have had substance issues. I see him tall and lanky and dark hair, and it almost reminds me of sort of like an 80s shag haircut. I even do see like the mustache on him, but he's thinner. I even see like his cheeks are like kind of sunken in, but like hard living, hard life for him. I sort of had this flash of military in his past, but it went by so fast that I don't feel like it, if he was in the military, it didn't last very long. Lanky, he's wearing the jeans. Classic Uncle Ted. Okay. Is his name Ted? I'm not 100%. It's just a name that just kind of came out of nowhere. So maybe his name is Ted. I don't know. He's like, there's something they're forgetting. They're forgetting to mention something. Okay, there's a pet. And actually, it's a corgi. I don't know if there's any link with a corgi. I always get dogs. Dogs are a funny thing to me because I really, like, I haven't had much of experience with dogs. So it's like, why do I get dogs all the time? Something he's forgetting. Okay, so maybe the grandparents had a corgi, and this is sort of like quintessential Graham and Gramps. Like, Graham and Gramps, they used to have big family dinners where everybody would come over once in a while and enjoy being in their cramped house. That many people really couldn't fit in their house, and they had this big giant table with all kinds of food, and it was in this little tiny room, and nobody could get around this big giant table, and it was such a mess. But they had a corgi. They had a corgi. Princess. Okay. Uncle Ted really wanted that communicated. Like, that was something that was really important to him that his mom and dad weren't saying. Okay. All right. I'm being shown an actual object, and it looks like a treasure chest. Now, the way they're showing me the treasure chest could be me looking too much into the details of this treasure chest, but its actual treasure chest is not like a big one. But it could even be like something that hangs on a necklace. And I see that it is metal, and it actually has some intricate work, metal work on the object. Something tells me it doesn't actually open up. It's just sort of this little object. I think this is another, like, reference, you know, like, so this would be an object that you would know about, or that you've come across, whoever's out there and understands all this. Or maybe something you've made. Okay. Metal. Okay, this is when things start shifting and I start getting psychic. So there was something with grandfather where he was like, he works with his hands, you know, he works with his hands. And this is to whoever's out there, and this makes any sense to them. But there's something you receive with your hands that has to do with you pick up the energy with your hands, which is funny because I did a reading, I don't know, a week or two ago where this became sort of a pinnacle part of the conversation, was receiving vibration through hands so subtly that you can't feel it, but you pick up on it. And working with metal for you is a way of picking up that energy. There's something about that that's very cathartic, but also changes. What is it? Okay. All right, let's see if I can explain this correctly. The energy that you put into creating the things that you make, that energy gets captured in the things that you make. And when you pass it along, you're sending that energy out. To whoever comes across that object, to wherever that object lies. And it sort of helps heal because of the energy you put into it that eventually is residual in the object and then is transmitted. There was this whole concept there that I had to peel apart in order to even try to explain that. I'm actually picturing the person that this is for. And it feels like this person would maybe would express to people these sort of ideologies, the spiritual theory stuff, but not allow people to really think that this is as big of a deal as it is to you. I feel like you're watching this right now and it's sort of still dabbling in the curiosities of it. But I think there's a wider philosophy that you've built that is pretty on point with understanding your intuitive psychic abilities. So for this person that I feel like this message is for, first of all, look at you getting a free reading that everybody gets to watch. But I feel like this person is kind of in a world of self-doubt that they've been in for a very long time. Almost kind of beaten down. Not literally beaten down, but I feel like the inability there's been a directionlessness that has sort of been fed by the everyday surfacey needs and wants, and that's getting old. There's a deeper meaning, you know? And I feel like you finally found that ambition to start doing the welding, which you're not feeling is like a lot of progress, or you don't feel a lot of commitment to it. But it's a way to better your circumstances. But I do feel like it's not connecting to your soul like you're really wanting to do. But let me put it this way. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be on a spiritual journey and not work. And you got to eat. You got to keep your body like healthy, or else you're dealing with problems that are going to distract you from spiritually growing. So there's sort of these baseline things you have to do, building that foundation to be able to really search in your intuitiveness, to really get in touch with what your gifts are. And I will say, continuing working with metal is the direction that will probably bring you security, but also feed that need of that spiritual touch. Okay. I'm being shown a bird feather, and it's blue. I don't know what that means. You have a favorite number when you see it. Observe what's around you. I guess this could go to anybody. If you have a favorite number and you see it, observe what's happening. What's going on right now? What were you thinking? What was just said on the TV? What was just said on the radio? What are you looking at? And that's something to pay attention to. But more specifically, this is for the individual who seems to be the focus of this. Now, this is where I would end, just for fun, because it's going on for 40 minutes. But was this an actual reading for somebody out there in the ethers? Was this an actual reading for somebody out there? I don't know. I was just giving you an idea of how my readings kind of work, what it would feel like to be sitting in front of me. B, to give you an example of a flow, but also kind of giving you a little understanding and what's happening in my brain and what I'm receiving and where I'm going, from medium to psychic. And if you noticed, when I was doing my mediumship stuff, I was talking like over here, like directed over here, but then once my psychic stuff came in, I was kind of positioned over here. That's something that developed over time, and perhaps practicing. Maybe you start noticing something similar, or even if you're doing mediumship stuff, when you communicate with different spirits, you start noticing maybe how you're explaining things depends on their gender or their age or stuff like that. So I think this is a good example for you guys to work off of to develop. See, I'm a little tired now. To develop your procedure, develop your routine, kind of develop how you do what you want to do. And then I'm still in that, my brain is still up there. I can't. I can't think. All right, I'm going to end this now before I start staring off into space. If you have any tips, you can throw that in the comments below. When I'm going to start doing this again on a regular basis, I'm going to feel it out, because that's what intuition is all about, feeling it out. But I did feel really compelled to talk about this, and actually I was thinking about it about an hour ago, and when I was thinking about it, I was sitting on the stairs outside, and a bunch of birds kind of flew over and were kind of like hanging out with me, like these wild birds, and I was like, I'll take that as a sign that I need to do a recording of this and pass this along. So there you go. You can thank the birds. Thank you, birds. So I'll chat with you again soon. Check out nextgenmedium.com. I am doing free readings right now, so you can sign up and get booked. No strings attached. I'm not even asking for an email. It's just something that I want to do. I want to do a bunch of free readings, and you could be a part of that. Do know Tuesdays, Thursdays is when I'm doing it, because that's how I can fit it in my schedule right now. So nextgenmedium.com. Also, I got the blog there and a podcast that I do as well. So that's all on the website, nextgenmedium.com. I will chat with you soon. I got more presents to be a part of. Until next time, later. NextGen Medium out.